The stars had always called to humanity. For 300 years, they had answered that call, spreading from Earth to 12 distant star systems. They built colonies on frozen moons and burning deserts. They learned to survive in places that should have killed them. But in a galaxy ruled by ancient powers, humans were still considered children playing in the dark. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the research vessel, watching an unnamed moon grow larger on her. She was 42 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too many empty sectors of space. Her ship was small, designed for surveys and sample collection, not for war. She had a crew of 37 people who trusted her to bring them home safely. "Captain, the mineral scans are showing something strange," said Lieutenant from his station. He was her tactical officer, a calm man who never raised his voice even in crisis. His fingers moved across his console with practiced speed. "There is a large structure beneath the surface. It is not natural." Leaned forward in her chair. "Show me." The change to display the scan results. Deep beneath the moon's gray surface, hidden under kilometers of rock and ice, lay something massive. The readings made no sense. The structure was giving off energy signatures that matched nothing in their database. Dr. Han rushed onto the bridge, her tablet clutched against her chest. She was the ship's, a woman who had spent her life studying alien life and technology. Her eyes were wide with excitement. "Captain, I have been analyzing the energy patterns. This technology is old, very old. It predates the by at least 50,000 years. They were the most powerful of the 5 elder races that controlled the galaxy. They had ruled their corner of space for 20,000 years. To find something older than them was almost impossible." "We need to go down there," said. "This could change everything we know about galactic history." Considered the risks. They were far from human space, in territory that belonged to no one. If something went wrong, help would take weeks to arrive. But she had not become a captain by avoiding difficult choices. "Prepare a landing team," she ordered. 3 hours later, stood in a cavern that no living being had entered for thousands of centuries. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Her boots crunched on ground that had not felt footsteps since before her species existed. Around her, arranged in perfect rows, were weapons, thousands of them. Some looked like rifles, others looked like cannons meant for ships. All of them hummed with quiet power, waiting to be used. "This is impossible," whispered. His voice echoed in the vast space. "Who built all of this, and why did they leave it here?" Ran her scanner over the nearest weapon. "I cannot identify the materials. They are not in any database. Captain, whoever created these was far more advanced than any species alive today." Touched one of the smaller weapons. It was warm under her fingers, like it was alive. She felt a strange connection to it, as if it recognized her somehow. "Can we take samples back to the ship?" Before could answer, his communicator screamed with alarm. "Captain, 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They are warships and they are heading directly for us." They ran, through the tunnels back to their shuttle, racing against time. His heart pounded in her chest as she pushed her body to its limits. They were not known for their mercy. If they caught the here, examining ancient technology in unmarked territory, they would have questions. Questions that would be asked in prison cells. The shuttle reached the just as the warships above them. They were massive vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Against them, there was nothing more than an insect waiting to be crushed. A voice crackled through the communication system. It was deep and cold, speaking in the language that all spacefaring species were forced to learn. "Human vessel, you have violated sacred space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Sat in her captain's chair, her mind racing through options. Surrender meant imprisonment or death. Running was impossible against 3 warships. Fighting was suicide. But there was a third option, a crazy, desperate option. She said quietly, "When we were in that cavern, did you notice the control panel near the entrance?" He nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Captain, we do not know what those weapons will do." "We know what they will do," she replied. "Can you activate those weapons remotely?" His hands were shaking as she worked her console. "I think so. The system seems to be waiting for a command. But Captain, this technology is completely unknown. We could destroy ourselves." Looked at her crew. 37 people who had families waiting for them back home. 37 people whose lives depended on her next decision. She thought about her daughter on Earth, just 10 years old, who had cried when left for this mission. "Do it," she said. "Press the activation sequence." For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the moon below them split open like a flower blooming in fast motion. Blue light erupted from the surface, forming into a wave of energy that expanded outward at impossible speed. It washed over them harmlessly like warm water, but when it hit the warships, everything changed. The 3 massive vessels went dark. Their engines died. Their weapons powered down. Their lights flickered and disappeared. They drifted in space, completely disabled but undamaged. "All ships have lost power," reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Their life support is still functioning. No casualties detected." Let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. "Get us out of here. Maximum speed to human space." As they fled into hyperspace, knew that everything had changed. They had found weapons that could disable the most powerful ships in the galaxy without killing anyone, and they had used those weapons against the. News traveled fast in space. Within days, every species in the galaxy knew what had happened. The elder races held emergency meetings. The Grand Concordat, the alliance of 5 ancient powers that had ruled the galaxy convened for the first time in centuries. They had watched humanity for years. They had seen how quickly humans adapted to new environments. They had observed how easily humans cooperated with each other and with other species. They had feared what humanity might become if allowed to grow unchecked. Now their fears had proof. Humans had access to ancient weapons that could challenge even the mightiest fleets. The vote was unanimous. All 5 elder races agreed for the first time in 3,000 years. Humanity had to be stopped before it grew too powerful to contain. In the halls of the Grand Concordat, the High Commander spoke the words that would launch a galactic war. "The humans are a threat to order itself. We must form an alliance against them. Not an alliance of friendship, but an alliance of necessity, an alliance of survival." And so the first alliance was born. 5 ancient civilizations, commanding millions of ships and trillions of soldiers, united by a single purpose: the destruction of humanity. On Earth, leaders received the news with grim faces. War was coming. A war against enemies who had dominated the stars since before humans had learned to make fire. Captain Park stood before the United Human Command, her small crew beside her, and told them what she had found beneath that unnamed moon. She told them about the weapons. She told them about the light that disabled without killing. "We did not ask for this war," she said to the assembled admirals and generals. "But it is coming anyway. The elder races fear us because we are different. We cooperate when they compete. We adapt when they stagnate. We show mercy when they show strength." She straightened her shoulders and met their eyes. "They think we are weak because we are young. They are wrong. Humanity has survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed us. We will survive this too." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral, the oldest and most respected commander in human history, rose to his feet. "Then let them come," he said. "We will be ready." 6 months had passed since Captain Park discovered the ancient weapons. 6 months since the elder races declared humanity an enemy of galactic order. Now the largest fleet ever assembled hung in space around human territory like a noose waiting to tighten. Admiral stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the enemy positions on a massive holographic display. He was 73 years old, with white hair and a face marked by decades of service. His hands were steady despite his age, and his mind was sharper than officers half his years. The numbers were terrifying. The First Alliance had gathered over 200,000 warships. They surrounded human space on all sides, creating a blockade that nothing could penetrate. No trade ships could enter. No supply vessels could leave. The elder races believed that starvation would break humanity within a year. "Grandfather," said a voice behind him. Commander walked up to stand beside him. She was 31 years old, with the same sharp eyes as her grandfather. She commanded the experimental stealth fleet, 12 ships equipped with technology that could make them nearly invisible. "The Council is waiting for your report." Nodded slowly. "Tell them the truth. The blockade is complete. We cannot break through with force. Our fleet is outnumbered 50 to 1. His jaw tightened, "So we just wait to starve." The old admiral turned to face her. There was no fear in his eyes, only calculation. "Who said anything about waiting? Come with me. I want to show you something." He led her to a smaller room where Ambassador Lee was working. She was a thin woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Screens surrounded her, each showing different alien communications she had intercepted and decoded. "Tell my granddaughter what you found," said. Looked up with tired but excited eyes. "The First Alliance is not as united as they want us to believe. The end they have old hatred for the. Centuries ago, the promised them control of certain territories in exchange for their support. Those promises were never kept." Leaned forward with interest. "Can we use that?" "Not yet," admitted. "Their fear of us is greater than their anger at each other, for now, but fear fades, old wounds do not." Placed his hand on his granddaughter's shoulder. "The blockade is not a weapon against our bodies. It is a weapon against our hope. They want us to feel trapped. They want us to believe we cannot survive without the galaxy's resources, so we will prove them wrong." Over the following months, humanity did something the elder races could not understand. Instead of rationing and suffering, the human colonies began to transform. Engineers worked day and night to build vertical farms that could grow food without sunlight. Scientists developed new methods to extract water and minerals from asteroids. Closed-loop systems recycled every drop of waste into something useful. On the colony world of New Sol, Doctor led a team of young scientists in building the first fully self-sufficient habitat. He was 28 years old, brilliant but awkward, more comfortable with machines than people. When his system went online and produced its first harvest without any outside resources, he cried. "We do not need them," he told his team. "We never needed them, we just forgot how to survive on our own." Word spread from colony to colony. Hope replaced despair. The blockade that was supposed to crush humanity had instead forced them to become stronger. 8 months into the siege, Admiral called Commander to his office. "It is time," he said. "The colonies can survive without trade. Now we need to remind the enemy that we can still hurt them." Stealth fleet launched in secret, slipping through gaps in the blockade that the enemy did not know existed. Their target was not the alien warships. It was something far more valuable, the communication relays that held the First Alliance together. The elder races relied on instant communication to coordinate their forces. Messages traveled through a network of relay stations positioned throughout the galaxy. Without those relays, commands would take days or weeks to arrive instead of seconds. His first attack came at Relay Station 7, a massive structure floating in empty space. Her ships appeared from nowhere, fired precisely targeted missiles at the station's transmission arrays, and vanished before the guards could respond. The station was not destroyed, but it could no longer send messages. Over the next 3 weeks, her fleet struck 12 more relay stations. Each attack was quick, surgical, and left no human casualties. But the damage to the Alliance was severe. Without instant communication, suspicion began to grow. The commander sent orders that never arrived. The admiral received information that was days out of date. Rumors spread that they were keeping secrets from their allies. Ambassador Lee watched the intercepted communications with grim satisfaction. "It is starting," she told Admiral. "They are blaming each other for the communication failures. They believe they are deliberately keeping them uninformed." Nodded slowly. Fear brought them together. Fear will tear them apart. The breaking point came in the 10th month of the siege. A supply convoy was attacked by unknown raiders. They blamed the who had been complaining about resource distribution, the responsibility, and accused the of staging the attack to gain sympathy. In the chaos, no one considered that a small human stealth ship had fired the shots that started the argument. The High Council held an emergency session. Their species had joined the Alliance reluctantly, pressured by threats. Now they saw enemies on all sides and friends nowhere. "We are sacrificing our ships and our people for a war that benefits only the speaker declared. "When this is over, they will reward themselves and forget our contributions. We have seen this before." The vote was close, but the decision was final. Their fleet to protect their own borders. 300,000 soldiers left the blockade overnight. They were not far behind. Their ambassador made one final demand to the High Command: immediate transfer of the territories promised centuries ago. When they refused, the fleet also. In his command center, Admiral watched the enemy formation scatter on his display. The blockade that had seemed unbreakable now had holes large enough to fly a fleet through. "Sir," his aide reported, "they and are holding position, but their formations are weakening. They do not have enough ships to maintain the full blockade." Stood beside her grandfather watching the same display. "Do we attack now?" Shook his head. "No, we have won this battle without firing a shot at their main forces. We will not give them a reason to unite again." He opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels hold position. Do not pursue the retreating forces. I repeat, do not pursue." The message went out across human space. Ships that had been preparing for a desperate last stand powered down their weapons. Soldiers who had expected to die relaxed their grips on their rifles. Ambassador transmitted a different message, this one to the alien fleets. "The United Human Command offers peaceful terms. We seek no conquest. We claim no territory beyond our current borders. We ask only to be left in peace. Any species that wishes to trade with humanity will be welcomed as friends." The response was silence, but it was a different kind of silence than before. Not the silence of predators waiting to strike, but the silence of confusion. The elder races had expected humanity to attack the moment the blockade weakened. Instead, humans offered peace. "Why do they not fight?" a commander asked his subordinates. "They could destroy us now. Why do they hold back?" No one had an answer. In the weeks that followed, the First Alliance crumbled completely. They retreated to their core systems, shocked by the failure of their grand strategy. They returned to their own territories, unwilling to continue a war that their allies had abandoned. Admiral gave his final address to the human people on the anniversary of the blockade's beginning. His face appeared on screens across 12 star systems. "They thought we were the threat," he said, his voice steady and calm. "They believed that surrounding us would break our spirit. They were wrong. We are humans. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars against ourselves. We do not break easily." He paused, letting his words settle. "But more importantly, they never realized the truth. We were never the threat to them. They were the threat to themselves. Their alliance was built on fear and greed. Such alliances always fail. Remember this lesson because they will try again. And when they do, we will be ready." The First Alliance had fallen. Humanity had survived its first great test. But Captain Park, watching the broadcast from her new command ship, knew that this was only the beginning. The elder races would return. They would learn from their mistakes. And next time, they would be much more dangerous. 3 years had passed since the first alliance collapsed. 3 years of uneasy peace. 3 years for the elder races to watch humanity grow stronger and spread further into the stars. Now they had returned, and they had learned from their mistakes. The second alliance was different. It was not just the 5 elder races this time. 17 spacefaring species had joined together, creating a coalition that stretched across half the galaxy. They called themselves the Galactic Unity, but everyone knew the truth. This was not unity. This was fear given form. Their target was Prime, a human colony world on the edge of settled space. 40 million people lived there, farmers and miners and families who had left Earth seeking a simpler life. They had found that simple life among the golden fields and blue mountains of their new home. Now war had found them. General received the invasion warning at his command post on the colony's main continent. He was 55 years old, a former farmer himself before he joined the military. His hands were rough from years of working soil, and his eyes were kind in a way that made people trust him instantly. "How many ships?" he asked his aide. "Over 400,000, General. They are demanding immediate surrender." Looked out the window at the peaceful farmland stretching to the horizon. Children were playing in a schoolyard nearby. An old woman was hanging laundry outside her home. These people had never known war. They had come here to escape the troubles of other worlds. "Tell them no," he said quietly. The aide hesitated. "Sir, we have less than 2,000 soldiers on this planet. We cannot possibly defend against." I said tell them no, turned away from the window, and send a message to Mayor, tell her it is time. Mayor had been preparing for this day since the first alliance fell. She was 50 years old, a small woman with gray streaked hair and a voice that could make hardened soldiers stand. For 3 years, she had quietly transformed Prime from a peaceful farming colony into a fortress. Every citizen over 16 had received basic combat training. Every building had been designed with defensive positions in mind. Underground tunnels connected every major settlement, allowing people and supplies to move without being seen from space. When the coalition forces landed, they expected terrified civilians begging for mercy. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. The population had vanished underground, leaving only traps and surprises behind. The first coalition patrol walked into the town of Riverside expecting no resistance. They were elite soldiers, veterans of 100 campaigns. When the ground opened beneath them and they fell into a hidden pit, they screamed in languages that had conquered star systems. No one died. The pit was deep but padded. Human medics pulled the soldiers out hours later and treated their injuries. Then they sent them back to their commanders with a message. "We do not want to kill you, but we will defend our home." The coalition commanders were confused. This was not how wars were supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to fight or surrender. These humans did neither. They disappeared and reappeared, striking from shadows and tunnels, never standing still long enough to be targeted. General coordinated the defense from a mobile command center that never stayed in one place for more than a few hours. He knew every hill and valley of Prime because he had farmed this land before he became a soldier. Now, he used that knowledge to make the enemy pay for every meter they advanced. "They expect us to fight like them," he told his officers. "Large formations, open battles, clear victory or defeat. We will not give them that satisfaction. We will be everywhere and nowhere. We will make this planet their nightmare." Months passed. The coalition committed more troops, then more again. 500,000 soldiers. 1,000,000. 2,000,000. Each wave pushed deeper into the colony, but each wave paid a terrible price. Not in deaths, but in frustration and exhaustion. The humans captured thousands of prisoners. Each one was treated well, fed properly, and eventually returned to coalition lines with the same message: "We just want to be left alone." Doctor, the young scientist who had built self-sufficient habitats during the blockade, had been assigned to communications on Prime. He spent his days listening to enemy transmissions, trying to understand their strategies. One night, he made a discovery that would change the war. "The coalition encryption is based on mathematical patterns," he told General excitedly. "Very complex patterns, but patterns nonetheless. I think I can break it." For 2 weeks worked without sleep. His eyes became red, his hands began to shake, but he refused to stop. Finally, at 3 in the morning, he cracked the code. "I am in," he whispered. "I can read their messages." But reading was not enough. Was a scientist, and scientists solved problems by changing variables. He began inserting false messages into the coalition communication network. Nothing dramatic at first. Small changes, delayed orders, incorrect coordinates. The commander received orders to attack a position that had already been abandoned. The fleet was told to expect supply ships that never arrived. The High Command sent messages to ground forces that were intercepted and changed before they arrived. Trust began to crumble. The coalition was made of 17 different species, each with their own language, culture, and history. They had old grudges that the Alliance had only papered over. Now those grudges began to surface. They accused the of deliberately sabotaging their operations. The blamed the for hoarding supplies. The who had reluctantly rejoined the Alliance after their withdrawal during the First Alliance began to suspect that they had been tricked again. "Why do our orders keep changing?" the fleet commander demanded. "Why do supplies never arrive when promised? Either we are being betrayed by our allies, or we are being manipulated by the enemy. Either way, this alliance is a lie." The breaking point came 11 months into the Battle of Prime. A battalion, exhausted and hungry after weeks of fighting, received orders to attack a heavily fortified human position. They advanced through a narrow valley, expecting artillery support from forces on the hills above. The support never came. They had received different orders, telling them the attack was cancelled. They walked into a killing zone and suffered their worst defeat of the war. When the commander learned that they had not fired a single shot to support them, he lost control. His fleet turned away from the human positions and opened fire on the ships in orbit. For 6 hours, 2 coalition allies fought each other while human defenders watched in amazement. By the time the High Command restored order, the coalition had fractured into 3 separate factions. They refused to fight alongside they had withdrawn again, claiming the alliance had broken its promises. Smaller species began slipping away, unwilling to die for a war that their masters were losing to each other. General watched the coalition retreat begin from his command center. His soldiers cheered around him, but he did not join them. Instead, he walked outside and looked up at the sky where enemy ships were turning away. An aide brought him a report. "General, the coalition is requesting a ceasefire to retrieve their wounded. How should we respond?" "Granted immediately," said without hesitation. "Send our medics to help them." The aide was surprised. "Sir, they invaded our home. They tried to destroy everything we built." Turned to face him. His eyes were tired but still kind. "They are soldiers following orders just like our soldiers follow orders. They have families waiting for them just like our people have families. We fight because we must defend our home. We show mercy because that is who we are." The humans did not just allow the ceasefire. They sent medical teams to help coalition forces evacuate their wounded. They returned prisoners with full medical treatment and personal belongings intact. They offered food and water to enemy soldiers who had been trying to kill them days before. A captured commander, a veteran of many wars, was so confused that he asked General directly, "Why do you show mercy? We came here to conquer you. We tried to destroy your homes. Why do you not hate us?" thought about the question for a long moment. Because hatred is easy, and we are tired of easy answers. Because your soldiers did not choose this war just as my people did not choose it. And because someday, when this is over, we will need to live as neighbors. I would rather start building that future now. The had no response. He simply stared at the human general as if seeing something he had never encountered before. News of Prime spread across the galaxy. Not just news of human resistance, but news of human mercy. Smaller species, oppressed by the elder races began to whisper among themselves. Perhaps the humans were different. Perhaps an alliance with them would not mean domination. The first to approach were a species of small, gentle beings who had been servants of for thousands of years. They sent a secret message to human space. We wish to be free. Will you help us? The answer came from Admiral Ryu, the new commander of humanity's combined forces. We will not just help you, we will fight beside you, as equals. The second alliance had failed, but something new was beginning, something built not on fear but on hope. A decade had passed since the discovery that changed everything. 10 years of war and peace and war again. 10 years of growth that the elder races watched with growing horror. Humanity had expanded from 12 star systems to 37, but more frightening to the elder races was the new alliance forming around the humans. They had been first, fleeing oppression to find shelter under human protection. Then came the species that had been crushed under the boots of the elder races for thousands of years now stood beside humanity as equals. Fleet Admiral Ryu commanded forces that would have been unimaginable a generation ago. Her flagship, the Unbroken, carried crew members from 7 different worlds. Her bridge officers included 2 navigators, a tactical officer, and a communications specialist. They worked together as smoothly as if they had been born on the same planet. Was 62 years old, with silver hair she kept short and practical. She had risen through the ranks during the darkest days of the siege and the brutal months of Prime. Every scar on her body told a story of survival against impossible odds. Now she faced the greatest challenge of her career. The elder races had formed a third alliance. This was not like the previous 2. There were no half measures, no held reserves, no secret doubts. Every ship the elder races possessed had been committed. Every soldier had been called to service. Every resource had been directed toward a single goal, the complete destruction of humanity. But their true weapon was something far worse than any fleet. The Void Bomb, Dr. Han explained to the emergency council meeting. She was 80 years old now, her hair white and her hands unsteady, but her mind was still sharp. They have developed a weapon that can destabilize stars. One bomb, properly deployed, can cause a star to explode. Everything in the system would be destroyed. The council chamber fell silent. General, now the supreme commander of ground forces, spoke first. Where do they plan to use it? His face was grim. Saul, they are going to destroy Earth. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Earth, the birthplace of humanity, the home of billions of people, the heart of everything they had built. Admiral Ryu stood and walked to the strategic display. Show me their fleet positions. The hologram revealed the nightmare. 3 separate enemy fleets were converging on Saul from different directions. 2 were conventional assault forces, each larger than anything humanity had faced before. The third was smaller but more heavily guarded. It carried the void bombs. We cannot stop all 3, said quietly. If we concentrate on Earth's defense, the bomb convoy will reach Saul. If we intercept the convoy, their main fleets will destroy Earth anyway. Captain Shin stepped forward. He was 58 years old, commander of Earth's home defense fleet. His ships were outnumbered 10-1 by the incoming assault forces. Admiral, I will hold Earth. Shook her head. You cannot. The numbers are impossible. Impossible has never stopped us before. Met her eyes without flinching. Take the main fleet and intercept the void bombs. My ships will defend Sol. We will buy you the time you need. You will die. Then we will die defending our home. He smiled, a sad but peaceful expression. There are worse ways to go. The council argued for hours, but there was no other choice. Admiral Ryu took the combined fleet toward the Void Bomb convoy, while Captain Shin prepared Earth for the battle of its life. The defense of Sol began at the edge of the solar system, near the frozen rocks of the outer planets. Its fleet numbered just over 8,000 ships. The enemy forces approaching them numbered 80,000. All ships, this is Captain Shin, he broadcast to his fleet. Today we fight not for victory but for time. Every hour we survive is an hour more for Admiral Ryu to stop the void bombs. Every minute matters. Do not throw your lives away, but do not hesitate when sacrifice is needed. Our families are watching from Earth. Let us make them proud. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. Human ships fought in ways the enemy had never seen. They used the gravitational pull of planets to slingshot behind enemy formations. They hid in asteroid fields and struck from ambush. They retreated and advanced, never letting the enemy pin them down. For 72 hours they held. Ship after ship was destroyed, but the survivors kept fighting. Captain Shin commanded from the bridge of his cruiser, making decisions that saved thousands of lives. When his own ship was crippled, he transferred his flag to a damaged destroyer. When that ship was hit, he moved to a patrol boat. By the end of the second day, he was commanding the defense from a converted cargo hauler with jury-rigged weapons. On Earth, the population watched the battle unfold in real time. They saw their defenders die in flashes of light against the black sky. They saw the enemy fleet grow closer with each passing hour, and they prepared. 3 billion people on Earth refused to surrender. Civilian ships mounted mining lasers and joined the defense. Orbital platforms that had been built for construction were converted into weapons platforms. Every human who could hold a weapon was ready to fight. "We will not go quietly," the President of Earth declared in a broadcast to the world. "If they want our planet, they will have to take it from our cold, dead hands." Meanwhile, Admiral Ryu's fleet had reached the cloud, the vast shell of icy objects at the edge of the solar system. Somewhere in that darkness, the void bomb convoy was hiding, protected by the most elite guard ships the elder races possessed. Lieutenant Commander was 29 years old, the youngest officer to ever command a destroyer in the human fleet. She had been raised on stories of Captain Park and Admiral. She had dreamed of being a hero since childhood. Now she sat in her captain's chair, staring at the tactical display. Her ship had located the convoy, but the escort was too strong. A direct attack would fail. "Admiral," she transmitted to the flagship, "I have an idea. If I can get close enough to the convoy and detonate my reactor, the resulting explosion will trigger the void bombs prematurely. They will destroy themselves instead of Sol." Admiral Ryu's voice was heavy with grief. "That would be a one-way trip, Commander." "I know." His hands were steady on her controls. "But Earth will survive. My parents are on Earth. My little sister is on Earth. If I can save them, it is worth any price." For a long moment there was only silence on the communication channel. Then Admiral Ryu spoke again. "Permission granted, and Commander, thank you." Ship accelerated toward the convoy alone. Enemy guard ships moved to intercept, but she was flying faster than any pilot should dare. Her crew had all volunteered to stay with her. They knew they were going to die. They chose to die together. The last transmission from the ship was brief. "For Earth, for humanity, for everyone who will live because of what we do today." Then the star maps lit up with a new light. The void bombs detonated in empty space, harmlessly far from any inhabited world. The weapon that was supposed to destroy humanity had been destroyed instead. Back at Sol, the enemy assault fleet received the news of the convoy's destruction. For a moment they hesitated. Their ultimate weapon was gone. Their losses in the battle had been enormous, and Earth was still fighting. Captain Shin, bleeding from wounds he no longer bothered to count, broadcast a message to the enemy fleet. "Your bombs have failed. Your alliance has failed. You can keep fighting and lose more ships, or you can leave. The choice is yours." The Third Alliance had committed everything to this attack. They had expected a quick victory followed by human surrender. Instead, they had lost their greatest weapon and thousands of ships. Their soldiers were exhausted. Their commanders were arguing about what to do next. One by one, the Allied fleets began to withdraw. The left first, then the others. Finally, only the ships remained. The High Commander stared at the tactical display showing his depleted fleet. Below him, Earth hung in space, battered but unbroken. Human ships that should have been destroyed were still fighting. Human people who should have surrendered were still resisting. "What are these creatures?" he whispered to himself. "What kind of species fights like this?" His flag captain had no answer. As the fleet turned away from Seoul, Admiral Ryu's fleet arrived. They had pushed their engines beyond all safety limits to return in time. Stood on the bridge of the Unbroken, tears streaming down her face as she saw Earth still whole against the stars. "Captain Shin," she transmitted, "report." The reply came weak and broken. "We held, Admiral. Earth is safe. Our losses." He paused to cough, a wet sound that spoke of serious injuries. "Our losses were significant, but we held." "Get to a medical ship immediately. That is an order." A weak laugh came through the speakers. "Already on my way, Shin out." The Third Alliance had failed. The void bombs were destroyed. Earth had survived. But the cost had been terrible. Thousands of ships lost. Hundreds of thousands of lives ended. Lieutenant Commander and her crew sacrificed so that billions could live. In the days that followed, humanity did not celebrate. They mourned. They built memorials. They remembered the names of everyone who had died. And they began to plan, not for war but for peace, a peace that would last forever. 42 years had passed since a small research vessel found ancient weapons beneath an unnamed moon. 42 years since the galaxy learned to fear humanity. Now the galaxy was learning something new, how to trust them. The Great Hall of the First Galactic Council floated in orbit above Earth, a massive station built by human and alien hands working together. Its design combined styles from 100 different worlds. Curves met human angles. Decorations hung beside banners. For the first time in galactic history, every species had a place at the table. President Moon walked to the central platform. He was 60 years old, a former diplomat who had spent decades building bridges between species. His gray hair was neatly combed, and his suit was simple but dignified. He looked out at the assembled representatives and felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. 143 species had sent delegates to this council. Some had been enemies during the Great Wars. Some had been victims of the elder races some had been allies from the beginning. All of them were here now, waiting to hear what humanity would say. "For thousands of years," President Moon began, his voice carrying through the vast chamber, "the galaxy was ruled by fear. The strong dominated the weak. Alliances formed not because species trusted each other, but because they feared what would happen if they stood alone. Those alliances always fail because fear is not a foundation. It is a crack in the foundation, waiting to break." In the audience, Admiral Ryu listened with tears in her eyes. She was 90 years old now, her once dark hair completely white. Her uniform bore medals from battles that had saved worlds, but she wore them reluctantly. Each medal reminded her of people who had died. Beside her sat Dr. Han, the who had first analyzed the ancient weapons aboard the So Long Ago. She was 104 years old, frail but alert, her mind still working to understand the alien cultures she had studied her entire life. "Humanity stands here today not because we were stronger than our enemies," President Moon continued. Not because we were smarter or more advanced. We stand here because when we faced extinction, we made a choice. We chose to protect those weaker than ourselves instead of becoming what we fought against. We chose cooperation over domination. We chose mercy over revenge. The delegation sat in silence. Their empire had collapsed 20 years ago, fracturing into dozens of smaller states that no longer threatened anyone. The representative here today was young, born long after the wars ended. He had grown up learning about humans not as enemies, but as the species that had shown mercy when they could have destroyed everything. They had changed too. Their once warlike society had turned inward, focusing on art and philosophy instead of conquest. Their representative was a poet who had written famous works about the futility of war. They had emerged from their self-imposed isolation just 5 years ago. They had spent decades studying what went wrong, trying to understand how their ancient civilization had become so twisted by fear. Now they were here, ready to try again. The who had once been the most aggressive species in the galaxy now served as peacekeepers. Their fleet patrolled trade routes and protected vulnerable worlds from pirates and raiders. Their representative stood at attention, proud of the new purpose her people had found. And scattered throughout the chamber were the smaller species. The dozens more who had lived under the boots of the elder races for. They sat in their designated seats with heads held high, equals at last in a galaxy that had once treated them as slaves. President Moon paused and looked directly at the representative. Young delegate, your ancestors once asked a question that deserves an answer. They asked, what do humans want from the galaxy? The chamber fell completely silent. We want what we have always wanted, the president said. Neighbors, friends. A galaxy where every species, from the mightiest to the smallest, can thrive. We do not want subjects. We do not want servants. We do not want others to bow to us or fear us. We want to build something together that none of us could build alone. He raised his hand, and the lights in the chamber dimmed. The ceiling became transparent, revealing the stars above them. Look up, President Moon said. There are more stars in this galaxy than grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth. There are more worlds than any species could explore in 1,000,000 lifetimes. There is room for everyone. There is no need for war. There is no reason for domination. The only thing stopping us from reaching for those stars together is the fear in our own hearts. He lowered his hand. Today, we ask you to let go of that fear, not to forget the past, but to build something better from its ashes. Will you join us? The vote was taken in the old way, each representative standing to show their agreement. The stood first, followed by the and the. Then the and the dozen other species that humanity had protected during the wars. The chamber held its breath as the elder races considered. The representative stood, then the. Finally, the delegate rose to his feet. My ancestors made many mistakes, he said, his voice young but steady. They taught me that humans were dangerous because you were different. Now I understand the truth. You were different because you were better. Not stronger or smarter, but better in the ways that matter, kinder, more hopeful, more willing to forgive. He bowed his head in the traditional gesture of respect. We stand with you. The Galactic Accord was signed that day, establishing the first true partnership of equals in galactic history. There would be no more elder races and younger races, no more masters and servants, only neighbors, working together toward a future none of them could imagine. In a small garden on Earth, Captain Park sat on a bench surrounded by flowers. She was 89 years old now, her hair white and her movements slow. The arthritis in her hands made it hard to hold things, but she had managed to carry a bouquet of roses to this place. The memorial wall before her listed thousands of names, people who had died in the wars, soldiers and civilians, heroes and ordinary people who found courage when it was needed. Among them were names she knew personally. Captain Shin, who had held Earth against impossible odds. Lieutenant Commander, who had sacrificed herself to stop the void bombs. so many others. Her grandson, Park, sat beside her. He was 24 years old, recently appointed as a diplomatic assigned to the. He had her eyes, dark and curious, always looking toward the horizon. "Grandmother, does it feel strange?" he asked. "After everything you went through, now we are at peace." Considered the question for a long time. Her fingers traced the names on the wall, feeling the carved letters beneath her touch. "I remember the day we found those weapons," she said finally. "I remember thinking that everything was about to change. I was right, but not in the way I expected. I thought we would have to become warriors to survive. Instead, we became something else, something better." She placed her flowers at the base of the wall. "We won," she whispered to the names carved in stone. "I hope it was worth the cost." Took her hand gently. "We will make it worth the cost, grandmother, every day for the rest of time." Across the galaxy, on 100 worlds, humans and aliens were working side by side. On former colony planets, human engineers helped rebuild cities destroyed in the wars. On distant space stations, scientists collaborated with human researchers on projects that would benefit everyone. In shipyards throughout known space, vessels were being constructed that carried crews from dozens of different species. The old ways were dying, fear was fading, hope was taking its place. Admiral Ryu, in her final public appearance before retiring, gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. "Every alliance built on fear failed," she said, her voice still strong despite her age. "The first alliance, the second, the third, they all collapsed because they were built on the wrong foundation. But an alliance built on hope, on trust, on the belief that we can be better than our ancestors, that alliance will last forever." She looked out at the crowd before her, faces from every corner of the galaxy. "We are not just humans anymore. We are not just or. We are citizens of a galaxy that finally understands its own potential. Our children will grow up without knowing war. Their children will explore stars we cannot even see from here. And their children and their children's children will look back at this moment and know that this is where everything changed." She smiled, the same smile she had worn on the Bridge of the Unbroken when she first saw Earth safe after the final battle. "The stars are waiting, let us reach for them together." In the years that followed, the Galactic Council grew stronger, trade flourished, science advanced faster than ever before, species that had fought for learned to trust each other. And at the center of it all, humanity continued doing what it had always done, adapting, cooperating, hopping, not as conquerors but as builders, not as masters but as friends. The galaxy had tried 3 times to destroy them. Each time, humanity had emerged stronger, not because they were the most powerful, but because they understood something the elder races had forgotten. The future belongs to those who build, not those who destroy, to those who give hope, not those who spread fear, to those who stand together, not those who stand alone. Every alliance built on fear had failed. But the alliance built on hope would last forever.